Hello, I'm BrigantiaBlackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the daily forecast for Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. It is the 28th of Sagittarius, and it is the day of reindeer. In our astrology, the sun is in Sagittarius, mutable fire, representing adventure. The moon is third quarter Leo, fixed fire, representing enthusiasm. Mercury is in Sagittarius, mutable fire, which is to be opinionated. Venus is in Aquarius, fixed air, which is to be intellectual. Mars is retrograding in Leo, fixed fire, which represents tempered action. Jupiter is retrograding in Gemini, mutable air, which is to broaden perspective. Saturn is in Pisces, mutable water, which represents nostalgia. Uranus is retrograding in Taurus, fixed earth, representing rebellion. Neptune is in Pisces, mutable water, which represents intuition. And Pluto is in Aquarius, fixed air, which represents reformation. Now for our retrograde reminders. For Mars, reconsider what you really want. For Jupiter, reconnect with your true path. For Uranus, reconsider how you rebel. And for Chiron, restore the heroic spirit. We have a waning gibbous mood now, so express gratitude and reap the benefits of your work. And the theme for the Leo moon is leadership and creative play. So today, Mercury is, moving forward, but it is in Sagittarius, which, even though that should smooth out communication. I don't know if you could hear that. One of the cats had a difference of opinion. Anyway, because we at Mercury is finally out of retrograde, that should be smoothing out most communication issues, except Sagittarius has a very bad habit of perhaps being too blunt when bluntness is not what is really required. And that makes it very easy for us to speak out of turn, just thoughtlessly, not with malice, not with maliciousness of any kind, just we weren't thinking and we phrased something perhaps a little bit indelicately. And so expect attack to be a bit challenging today, and it may be a little bit more difficult to listen and to really take in some of the nuance and subtle cues that the person on the other end of the conversation is giving us, especially with the moon in playful Leo, because Leo wants to go out and have fun, and I have a direction, so let's go. Why aren't you following me? Let's go. That's what the Leo moon is like. But just be aware of this atmosphere. Try your best. That's all any of us can really do. Today's tarot is the Krampus, and quite the visual aid we have with it. In this particular deck, the Krampus stands in the position of the devil in the traditional tarot. It's number 15 in the major arcana, which represents bondage of various kinds. And the key words for the card are danger, trapped, and restriction. And also, I would say, getting the consequences of your action. You see, one child has apples and is just having a grand time, and the other child is getting the birch switches. People don't like to think about punishment, of course, especially when it comes to perhaps us getting our own just desserts for little mistakes that we've made along the way. But, in the end, all of us do have to pay in one way or the other. Generally, I don't think that the Krampus is going to be coming after us with birches to the backside. But certainly, we can experience different forms of feeling humiliated, being embarrassed, of wondering, I don't know where my brain was when I made that decision. And now the aftermath of all of that is extremely difficult and uncomfortable. But when we make mistakes, it is our duty to bear the brunt of the punishment. But more than that, it's we need to understand what led us to that position to begin with. What decisions what we made, what was the thought process that actually led us here? Because if we retain the same thought process, we're probably going to go through the same actions, which will end up with the same similar consequences that we don't want. So, in order to change our outcomes, we are going to have to first change how we think about things, and sometimes even how we perceive things. Sometimes we can get a little bit too wrapped up in our own subjective point of view and forget that perhaps there is another way of looking at the situation. And sometimes I think we have experienced the danger of identifying a little bit too much with our perceptions, of making our perceptions our identity instead of just, observations, how we observe things. So taking a broader view, probably very much to our benefit today. And if you are confronted with the consequences of your actions that aren't very fun, just bear up and look for the important lessons. Today's Celtic Triad reads, three things by which befall the unwise person: failure, disgrace, and sorrow. So when it comes to failure, we all experience it at one time or another, but it tends to become a lifestyle for people who are unwise, who make very foolish decisions, who are not learning from their mistakes. This is really tying in with our Krampus card from a moment ago, isn't it? Then disgrace. The unwise people, they fall into endless and often avoidable errors. They damage the reputation, sometimes quite permanently. And, it's easier to damage a reputation than it is to fix it. So that's something to bear in mind if we happen to be feeling just a trifle bit reckless. And then sorrow. Mistakes, of course, can be painful. Feeling regret and remorse, that's not a fun thing for anyone. And that's one of the reasons why it behooves us to try to cultivate wisdom and practice wisdom as much as we possibly can, because we don't want to have a life that is nothing but failures. We don't want to really be disgraced, particularly from people who we actually value their opinion. It's one thing for someone who you don't like to disapprove of you, but it's another for someone who you might be close to, whose opinion you really respect, for them to think that you really, really messed up, that actually does hurt because that's someone whose respect we would like to have in return. And of course, sorrow. I mean, we don't want that to be what our life is really about. So yeah, we can't avoid all mistakes, of course, but we can learn from those mistakes that we have made. We can learn to identify thought processes and actions that are foolish in and of themselves, and we can decide to make different decisions for ourselves. But it requires effort for us. It requires us prioritizing the quality of our life. Next up, today's magical correspondences are centered on the theme of gratitude. For this, the color is white, the plant is the lotus, the animal is the doe, and the crystal is quartz. Even if we have fallen on economically difficult times, as so many people have, there's still a lot that we do have to be grateful for. And I think this is why it's important for us to get out of the habit, if we're in it, to stop measuring ourselves against what people who are in an entirely different tax bracket happen to have, or what they consider success to be, or anything of that nature. Finding the joy in everyday little comforts, even if it's something as simple as, you might be in a rough job that you don't like, you might be having real problems with the bank account, you might have issues in your personal life. But if you can come home every day to where you have a made bed, there's no dishes in the sink waiting for you, you have an idea of what you're doing for dinner, if you at least have a good book to curl up with, those are still things, that's still a life in which there are blessings, there are things to be thankful for, and you're not making a difficult situation worse. Because while, doing things like keeping up with your housekeeping, making sure that you have some entertainment that's actually uplifting to you, and, and as far as books goes, I mean, if you are within distance of your local library, they do still exist. You can still check out books, so you don't have to pay money up front for these things. Um, oh, mercy, I almost lost my thought. But the point is that these small everyday comforts, they don't necessarily solve the overarching issues with our careers or with money management or with relationships, but they are things that make day-to-day life just a little bit better. It's not, these are things that are not going to contribute to chaos. They're not going to contribute to difficulties. They're not going to contribute to any unhappiness that you might be struggling with. So I think that's something to bear in mind. And of course, for those of us who are in the craft, we can use our skills to not only cultivate gratitude, but also to ultimately better our situations. So, um, sometimes I think perhaps gratitude can be a pathway for future motivation. So if you are struggling with motivation and I can't seem to whack up the ginger to actually do something productive about my situation, because sometimes that is where depression does lead us, to where we are just so exhausted. The thought of doing one more thing is just really too much. However, with gratitude, with meditation on gratitude, with having some making a conscious decision to really cultivate thankfulness for what we do have, that can go a long way towards not only improving our outlook, lifting at least some of the symptoms of depression, but it can give us just enough fuel to where we can start taking those steps that will be practical and that will improve our situations. Then today's housekeeping hint is spare yourself some last minute stress. Make outfit decisions for important Yuletide gatherings ahead of time. And we are just days away. We are getting right down to that wire. But if you already know what you're going to wear, when you're going to see your family, or if you're getting together with other pagans, or whatever it is that you have to do, if you know what you're doing, then when the time comes, you simply get dressed, you get ready to go. You're not having to focus on that. You're not having last minute stress. So, just as a suggestion. So for our practice, little tidbit is that gingerbread man cookies make ideal offerings for Yule rituals. In case you were, just a little bit low on ideas, you wanted to do something a little bit different. Gingerbread men. That's gingerbread is very easy to make. If you have a little gingerbread man cookie cutter, it's very easy just to roll that dough out, cut out the cookies. You can also use these things for more than just, expanding the waistline. Then for divination, you can do a Yule spread. There'll be one following. Then the archetype today is the winter seer. And I've put the question to you: can the chill of the icy winds of winter actually strengthen psychic vision? So that might be interesting to contemplate. Then for meditation, a suggested theme is dreams in winter, because I think winter is very much a time of dreaming, because everything, the rest of the year is about execution, getting the seed planted, or it's about cultivating what we're doing, or it's harvesting the results of it. But for winter, it really is about dreaming of the next phase. And then if you happen to have a venturine, you might decide to carry or wear it today. So I have just a 3-card winter solstice tarot spread for you. The first card on the left: during this long night, this is revealed behind the shadows. Then the middle card: the light that will guide me as the sun begins to regain strength. And then the third and final card on the right: as the wheel turns to its season, I bring this lesson with me. Now, I wanted to bring this 3-card spread to your attention because sometimes just having 3 cards to focus on is actually more helpful to us than a larger spread, because it gives you 3 main points. And that's oftentimes easier to keep in mind, easier to remember, and easier to apply the advice that's given. So, sometimes more when it comes to tarot spreads is just more. Sometimes you really do just need the bullet points, because that's what you can focus on. Moving on, in today's Creative Corner, if you are feeling stuck about any of your last minute Yule preparations, make or consult your vision board for the season. And rather than trying to copy various elements, absolutely exactly, think about what kind of atmosphere those images are creating in your mind, and then try to use that as inspiration to create the atmosphere that you are longing for, whether it's just sprucing up your living room before you have guests over, or setting your dining room table, or anything else that you're doing. Just think about, what is the feeling I'm trying to convey. That'll be probably a lot easier and more productive for you than trying to, I need to find this exact element I see in the picture, because if I have that, I'll feel the same thing as when I'm looking at the picture. That's not always how it works. So definitely atmosphere over specific details. Then today's journal prompt: are you more prone to analyzing the past or affirmatively shaping the future? And for our picture to contemplate this, I brought you essentially a version of the Three Ghosts of Christmas from A Christmas Carol. I thought they illustrated the point quite well. Are we, and if we are more prone to analyzing the past, are we just kind of wallowing in what's already taken place, or are we looking for lessons? And if we're looking for lessons, is that proved out by how we make choices in the future? And if we're looking at the future, is it an escape from dealing with what we need to do now? Or is it about actually thinking, okay, I have this vision, so I'm following these various steps to try to manifest that vision? Just where are you at with all of that? So, on that note, have a magical day, everyone. I wish you bright blessings and all the joys of the season. Come back again tomorrow for the next edition, and I will see you then. But bye for now.